Hello, my name is Elise, or Caffeine and Misery, and today I have for you Lianorn Vivace. Hey, Lianorn Vivace was released in BT-13. It's one of the top decks currently, as I'm making this video, and I'm going to be going over my personal profile for the pure Vivace build instead of the mass build, along with tech cards that you could be swapping in as of the rule change coming on January 19th. Just a couple of small ones, nothing major. For the ride line, I'm doing the Rhoda line. And for the early rush, Awakening from Slumber, the grade 1 plays a plant token behind it when he's ridden. And then when you ride into the grade 2, you retire that plant token, get 2 anywhere you want. I do 1 column. It's just a good early rush strategy, get some early pressure on your opponent. And then, of course, I'm running a Grand March of Full Bloom Lianorn as the grade 3 for the ride line. And once per turn for a counterblast, you draw a card, then either call or discard a card. And I don't think there's any cards aside from triggers that you wouldn't want to call, and even then you may want to call the triggers for the second effect, that when it attacks, next you can Soul Blast one and discard a card and boost with your entire standing back row. If you boost with 3 units using this skill, she gains an additional drive check and then restands to the back row. Please remember that you have to have 3 standing, so when you attack, you swing, do skill, boost with all 3. For other grade 3s, I am running 4 copies of Vivace. Since this is a pure build, this is your main win condition. It has the Unison Dress keyword, which, when placed over a unit in Unison Dress, or a different Lianorn, you draw a card and put her into the Unison Dress state. And then when it attacks, next, if it is in the Unison Dress state, and is not boosted, you restand all of your rear guards, and then all 5 boost it. Then, at the end of that battle, if you boost it with 3 or more, you can counterblast 1 to stand 3 of your units, and they all gain 5k and drive -1. This does include the Vanguard herself, so you are still hitting those 3 checks. And the other grade 3 I'm running is 4 Resonance Dragon. And as a rearguard, if you've boosted at least 3 times, he gains an additional 5k. And then at the end of the battle, it attacks if you have a Lianorn Vanguard and 5k, and have done 5 or more boosts of a Vanguard in that turn. You can counterblast 1 and shove it into Soul to restand 1 of your units. This gives you your 7th attack of your turn. It's typically on the Vivace turn. It's incredibly consistent, and while the deck doesn't use a lot of Soul Blast, it does also allow you to hit extra attacks on your first grade 3 turn to put even more early pressure if you aren't hitting the Vivace yet. And that's it for grade 3s. For grade 2s, I'm only running the 4 Luster Impact Dragon, the Box Topper Stoicheia promo for BT-13, which during your turn, if your back row has 2 or more, or grade 1 or less, it gets boosted 5k. So you can have 1 in the back row as a booster, and then if it's restood by a Grandfier Lianorn, if the Vanguard's power is at least 3,300, so say when it got boosted, when the Lianorn boosts by the skill, well, from like all 3 or all 5, doesn't matter, you can Soul Blast 1, draw a card, and he'll gain an additional 5k. And he's mainly there as a good draw engine to dig deeper for some of your pieces. Next up, I'm running 4 copies of Rosarium Fairy. Its first effect gives you some more early rush if you need it, by retiring another rearguard, or preferably a plant token. You get 2 more plant tokens. And then when she attacks, if you have a Vanguard with either Grandfier or Lianorn, she gets to select one of your back row units and gain its power on top. This does not need to be unboosted, so if you have a big booster behind her, you swing, attack, skill, she gains that power still. Next, I am running 4 copies of Rhythm of Joy Atlantis, which, if you have a Lianorn Vanguard, she gains 2k. If it's in Unison Dress, it's 5k instead. And then at the end of the turn, if you boost the Vanguard 3 or more times minimum, you can retire her to draw a card, and if you don't have any face-up counterblast, you get a countercharge off of it. I'm maxing her out at 4 because, again, you want to dig deeper in the deck, and you want to make sure you have the resources for your Vivace turns. I'm also running 2 copies of Green Jewel Beast Elmerdal. Well, this is mainly for that guard effect that makes it a 20k shield, but in very rare instances, the Soul Charge and plus 5k can come up. It can be a big difference maker. This is part of that cycle that on place either onto rear or guard circle, well, you take 2 of your cards from the right deck and return them to the right deck to do either skill. Lastly, for grade 1 units, aside from Perfect Guards, I'm running the one of Forming Petal Diantha. I personally don't think she's that important right now. Oh, the recursion's fine, but with how much you're digging through the deck, you don't really need to be recurring too often. She's more of a late game, I need the last piece to pull it together kind of card. And then I'm also running 3 copies of Mythiarch Habitat. Habitat is straight deck thinning, when you, which on play as a grade 1 order, or you can check the top 7 of your deck, choose a unit, and call it as long as its grade is equal to or less than the Vanguard. And along with that, it can actually be searched off itself, because when it would be called, when you would be selecting a unit, you can select it and add it to hand, and if it would be called from deck instead. It's just a very good way to dig for your deck, find specific combo pieces at different points. You can dig for early rush pieces like the Rosarium Fairy, and you're just deck thinning more. And then, of course, I'm on your standard 3 Sentinels and the Elementary Sanctitude. For triggers, I am personally running 4 copies of the Soul Critical. Well, I don't think the Soul is particularly important. The only card that actually makes use of it is the Luster Impact and the Rideline Lianorn. If you are stuck on that Lianorn for a while, well, it can actually be helpful to try and build up the Soul. But if you're stuck on that Lianorn and you aren't losing, and because you're not hitting your main win condition, you're probably fine. I'm running 3 more of the just generic crits, capping at 7. I'm doing 4 draw triggers. Again, you want to be digging through your deck. You want to be seeing more of your combo pieces. There's more of the Resonance Dragons and the Rosarium Fairies. And you want to be making sure you're hitting your Vivace. For heal triggers, I am on 2 regular heals, and then 2 copies of Alchemic Hedgehog, which is the one that gains an additional 15k guard, bringing it to 25 if your opponent, and if the opponent's unit attacking got a critical through a skill rather than a trigger. The reason I'm running this one is because of namely Youth Perk, which, as you know, if Zest is in Soul for Full Blast, it's getting that extra crit. And because of Draw Jeweled, which if you are on grade 3, the grade 3, a Draw Jeweled gains a critical. And the grade 4 Draw Jeweled, I believe, gains a critical in general when it does its skill. And then I'm personally running the Stoicheia over trigger, which is the one that does all draw fronts and crit and heal, so you're drawing 2 off of it. And this is up to personal preference. You can also run the Volnut. I personally think the Blessed Favor is better, for the deck, because if you're already gambling on a somewhat sacky card, I'd rather gamble on the one that helps me dig more for my combo pieces. And then lastly, for cards to round out those 4 extra cards we're getting as of January 19th, there's a couple of options. You can run a couple of copies, 2 to 3, of Burrow Mushrooms, or 2 to 4, honestly. Which is the one which you can put into Sol to call 2 plant tokens, just as another rush piece. You can put in a second Diantha, since games may go longer because there's more combo pieces. You may see more defensive cards. She can get you recursion earlier when you may need it. On recursion, you could also do something like 2 copies of Command of Death's Restraint, which mills a card and either calls a unit from drop with a grade less than or equal to your Vanguard, or adds an order back to hand, which means you can either, if your board is full, well, your deck's thinning a little bit more and you can add back the Mythiarch Habitat, or you can get another combo piece from your drop for free, as opposed to the 1 Counterblast of Diantha. And then you can also round it out with the last copy of Mythiarch Habitat. But that is my personal take on Lianorn Vivace. And I will see you guys next time.